You have found what lights you up. I'm your host, Sunny the Life Coach, and I'm here because I see you searching for something or someone out there to help you feel better. Something to take away the pain that you're feeling, the inadequacies. I know all of the things that happen in life can leave you feeling empty. Your search is over. This podcast is all about finding your own freedom and power to love yourself enough to shine in the ways you were always meant to, the ways in which you are already fully capable of. If you're ready for some real talk, some serious truth bombs, and a few F-bombs, you are in the right place. Let's do this. Let's get lit. Hey there. Welcome to what is going to end up being a little bit of an extension of my last episode. If you have not heard episode 107 yet, it is not required that you have that background coming into this one. I'm going to give you just a little context. And please listen all the way to the end because I have a bit of a bonus to share with you. Actually, it's a pretty big deal as far as I'm concerned. Stick with me and I will give you all the deets. All right then. Some context. What I shared last week was two very important things at a high level. Again, I invite you to go back and listen for more of the story or stick around to the end of this episode for other options. First, I talked about family and what family means and how we define family and your family of origin, whatever that might look like for you. And part of this also includes recognizing and embracing that sometimes our family of origin, in air quotes, does not necessarily encompass biology, as I am an adoptive parent. Second, and along these lines, I shared an experience, less than pleasant, that I had in a mixed group dedicated to adoption that intentionally centers all conversation on the perspectives of the adoptee. It did not go well for me to show up in that space. And I certainly did learn a lot, and that was the intent, I am sure. One of the things that I learned is that that particular group does not take kindly to expressions of love from those who wear my label, nor how everything falls into place exactly as it's meant to. They are not in a place to receive those messages at all. It is a fantastic example of groupthink or herd mentality, if you are familiar with either of those phrases, or pack attack. I remember that was one that was used a lot within my work circles a while back, and pack attack really is the action that is taken by the group or the herd in an effort to protect the collective. By sharing just a little snapshot of my story, yes, my story, more on that in a minute, I was seen as a threat to the community that had been so carefully crafted and curated. I do mean carefully, diligently, and with very specific purpose and intent. If you do not identify as a listener, if you do not identify with this specific label that I'm talking about, then you will likely be dismissed, or maybe even a pack attack will ensue. Now, here's what I need you to know if you are not in the sphere of adoption. It's complicated. It always has been, I am certain. The industry itself has certainly evolved, though I'm sure there are still problematic elements. There are so many variations between domestic, international, foster, kinship, just to name a few. And so every experience is as unique as it is complex. Now, I also mentioned that I had been pondering sharing my story here. I just wasn't sure how to go about doing that while still honoring anonymity of others involved and all of the things. That whole experience, the one that I had last week, got me really thinking about why I have been holding back on sharing my story. And here's what I've come up with. I am as fiercely protective of all of the players, all of the roles in that particular round of my game of life, as are the members of that group were as fiercely protective of their rules. And they have a lot of rules, let me be clear. I haven't left. I just muted and I backed away. I will do that for a time before I make a decision to leave, but I've checked back like twice over the past week just to see the types of conversations that were occurring, and let me just say, those quick check-ins did a lot to confirm my initial assessment that there is a very binary, black and white, right or wrong, this or that mindset in that particular online space that runs very, very deep. And also, a couple more rules have been added since my engagement. Since then, since last week. Now, I don't believe it was because of me. The rules that were added don't appear on the surface to have had anything to do with that mess. It's just that the whole reason I got myself into it, the mess, in the first place was because there were so many rules that I missed some things. So I want to touch on rules for just a moment. Then we will get into story sharing. Even if you don't know anything about the world of adoption, you have likely found yourself somewhere along the way of interacting on social media that this group of people or that one has their own rules by which they live and what they expect of others who enter their sphere. Think BIPOC, LGBTQ, political, religious, spiritual, general healing. Everyone has their own rules. And we are expected to quickly bring ourselves up to speed on what the rules of engagement are for this space in particular, on top of the rules that we have already been living by for a lifetime. The ones that we have been carefully conditioned to believe from childhood, from our parents, our teachers, and society as a whole. Examples of those type of rules I can think of off the top of my head are things like, don't speak up in class unless you have raised your hand and the teacher has given you permission. Don't lie, cheat, or steal. Do not intentionally cause harm to another. Never discuss salary in the workplace, which is total BS. You get the idea. We are all already carrying around our imaginary rule books, and then we show up in an online spaces and have to navigate those as well. It's a total mindfuck. And I even have this book that I have yet to read, but definitely need to queue it up soon, considering my recent experiences. You may have heard of it. It's called So You've Been Publicly Shamed by Jon Ronson. I was guided to this book a couple of years ago, but I haven't prioritized reading it yet. But according to Entertainment Weekly, the endorsement on the back cover is, it is required reading for the internet age. Anyway, the description aligns well with this topic. Part of it is acknowledging that, and I quote, shame now moves at lightning speed and with devastating effects. And it goes on to mention how the author, back to quote, has traveled the world meeting recipients of famous public shamings, often while their shamings are in full force. These are people who say, made a joke on social media that came out badly. Once a transgression is revealed, collective outrage circles with the force of a hurricane, and the next thing they know, they've been torn apart for it, jeered at, demonized, and fired from their jobs. End quote. Yeah, cancel culture. We sure are seeing a lot of that lately. It's very familiar to us now. Maybe we've even participated in it. I might have canceled a business, a group, or a person myself. I may have done that. We do have that choice, right? And that's the point. We have that choice. We all do. It is called free will. Don't like what someone else is doing or saying? Stop listening and don't buy their products or services. Some entity doesn't align with your personal morals? Don't engage with them anymore. But we humans don't like to stop there. We want to let the other party know about how they have harmed us. We get loud about it. We push back and we demand that they change. We demand that they comply, conform to our expectations, shapeshift so that they can fit into the perfect box that we have designed, because our box is the prettiest box, don't you see? This is the way, not that one. So these are the things that keep us from sharing our stories. Number one, all of the rules that we carry as a result of our conditioning from childhood and beyond. Number two, the new rules that have been created in whatever space we are visiting, be it in person or online. We sure have seen that over the past few years of the pandemic, have we not? Pushing back in public spaces when the rules don't suit us. And number three, the fear of being shamed if we get it wrong, which is innate, by the way. Now, I have interviewed a few authors on this podcast, most of whom have written memoirs that are pretty raw, and I have been both fascinated by and deeply touched by each of their abilities to be vulnerable in their expressions of their truth. That's the tricky part, right? We are talking about our stories, our truths, our perspectives, our filters. There is not a single story that I can think of that includes only me. That would be pretty freaking boring. The very reason that we have anything interesting at all to share about our lives is that it involves connecting and interacting with other humans. That's another bomb-ass point. So let me say it again, louder for the people in the back. The very reason that we have anything interesting at all to share about our lives is that it involves connecting and interacting with other humans. Now, here's the kicker, and I've had a few conversations about this in recent years. We also begin to hear that our stories are not ours to tell. Other people are involved and we need to have their permission. Do we though? Take the author Carol Finizza, for example. She was recently here sharing her fiction novel, Murder on Hollywood Beach. Yet, if you listen to that episode, she actually created an entire imaginary world with characters in order to cope with her daughter's addiction. Her main character is a blend of herself and her daughter. She didn't name names. She didn't air dirty laundry, but she went through the process of embarking on her own healing journey in a way that made sense to her. And take Laura Davis, who wrote a memoir about her mother in The Burning Light of Two Stars. I can't recall if this part made it on the recording, but Laura and I spoke for a little bit of time after our interview, and she shared how she managed to get her family on board with the things that she published in her book. She gave them a draft to read and said, let me know if there's anything you can't live with me keeping in here. Actually, yeah, I think that part did make it in, because she said that her brother asked to be painted in just a little bit more of a positive light. Just a little. Take Lauren Dolly Duke, author of Shithouse. She needed to share some of the most traumatic and shameful parts of her childhood in order to get to the healing part of her journey. She gave her mom a copy after it was published and is overall neutral about whether her mom is going to read it or not. At least that was the case when we spoke about it. You know who gave these women permission to share their stories? They did. And I remember advising a concerned new mom once over the past year, wondering if it was okay to post pictures of her baby online. After all, the baby can't give consent. What happens when the child gets older and might feel resentful over having unauthorized photos floating around the internet? Oh, that gets so sticky if that's part of your rule book. My position is this. What does your intuition say? Mine was very protective in the first couple of years, and I shared very little of our son online. To the point, and I've said this before, only a handful of people who did not interact with me on a daily basis even knew that he existed. So I slowly started sharing a little more and a little more each year up until about 3 years ago when he announced that he would need to give me permission to share anything further. And I was like, damn, okay, dude, got it. Consent? I was actually proud of him for doing that. Well, what that did was it opened the door for us, for he and I to have more conversations about what I share of his life. And it guided me to be more mindful of my intent. Because let's face it, the algorithms love our kids and our pets, don't they? We get engagement when we share personal aspects of ourselves and our families. All of this stems from fear. Fear of hurting someone else's feelings, which isn't even possible. Everyone has their own lens and will never fully be able to view from theirs. Fear of being shamed. It's all fear-based. And honestly, that isn't where we want to be. I don't say this from that place of everything is love and light that I have recently been accused of promoting. It isn't. Yet, trying to balance between the shadows and the light isn't an easy place to be either, because I don't see either or, this or that, dark or light. Again, visualize the yin-yang symbol. There's a part of the opposite on each side, and the design is fluid. The lines are fluid. They are round. They are not straight lines. The reason I say that fear isn't where we want to be is because it does in fact dim us. It dims our ability to shine if we are constantly living in it, or at least leaning toward it. What I do is I see it. I don't let it consume me, but I also acknowledge that it exists. That's where I am saying that I am different from others in this space. I'm not this or that in the realm of coaching or spiritual healing. I am both. I am dancing in the middle. And that's the key. Part of me telling my story is sharing who I really am, what I see, my lens, my perspective, yes, as a coach, and also as a fellow human being. As Rumi says, the dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. That's what it's really about, my friend. The shame that we anticipate that will be showered upon us if we tell our version of the story that is our life is what keeps us frozen. Don't be afraid to tell your stories. Don't be hesitant to share the parts of you that won't always be there. We have limited time on this planet. If we spend it all worried about getting it wrong or what others will think of us if we do, well, we'll never do a damn thing. We won't leave even the smallest version of a footprint when we depart. But think about it. Maybe embrace the reality that the only permission you need is from yourself. Yeah, sit with that truth bomb. Okay, you have made it to the end. What I wanted to share with you is that I am going to start doing weekly YouTube videos that I am loosely referring to as extra light at the moment. I don't know, you all. This is all new to me. They will be short videos and currently abbreviated versions of these podcasts where I will give key takeaways and extras. And, well, we shall see where this goes. I would love to do some YouTube live interactions in the near future, but I'll need you on board to make that happen. Right now, I have no audience whatsoever. Videos will be posted on Fridays around noon Central Time, U.S. Check it out. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. I will drop the link in show notes. I would so very much appreciate your support and your compassion as I wobble through the first few weeks of these. Being on camera is not my favorite thing to do, but it is beyond time. I also invite you to a one-on-one conversation if you are curious about the work that I do and how I can help you to feel better about your family relationships and your life in general. Today, email me, also in show notes. I cannot wait to meet you. Until then, light up and shine on.